I think a lot of people, the mental health is aggravated because they're caught in this mentality that society doesn't value what I find important, what brings me purpose. And so a lot of people will not do that thing that could actually bring them a lot of joy because they have been told, or it's been internalized, they've been conditioned from living in the society that thing doesn't have value. Right? I think there was a lot of years where my family was like, when are you going to get a real job? Like working the music business is not considered by some a real job.
Correct.
Now that I'm working with famous people, oh, wow, that's great. That's cool, man. Look how valuable that is. But when I was, struggling in the underground club scene where I'm making $50 in drink tickets.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Stable Cyclist Podcast. And I promise, I don't think we're going to talk about bikes today, but you're going to want to listen to this entire episode. This is really unique. Paul Wichmann is with me, one of my, if not closest, if not my best friend in high school for a good chunk of it, is here today to talk about some very unique things, but also things that we talk about on this show all the time. So Paul, how are you, man? You're here in God's country in Pelican Rapids.
And I love coming back here. I grew up on the lake, and my family doesn't live there year round anymore. So now it's become the family cabin, and just coming up here and I love this whole area. I love Pelican Rapids. I love Vergas and Dent and all the neighboring towns, and just love coming up here.
Straight up rural lakes country is what we're
talking. Man, that's my heart and soul, man. I grew up here. This is, it's like you can take the country out of the kid, but you can't take the kid. Or you can take the kid out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the kid. So I'm still.
So it was ironic. You're here. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk a little bit about running, but not in a competitive sense. But I was scrolling on my phone last night. I was doing some social media work, and I'm going to slide this over. Can you tell me who the top name is on that most recommended songs right now?
What is this on? What is this?
This is off of Instagram.
Or just Instagram?
Yeah.
Or what most people are playing?
This is the most used song right now.
Wow, interesting.
On stories in Instagram. And what is that name that you see?
Yeah, Tyler, the Creator.
Ah, interesting. Okay. And he is a big reason. I mean, he's going to come up in the conversation.
Yeah.
Because you work with him.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's my day job.
Yeah. And so, that's the tease. We're not going to get to that for a while, but that's the tease. So many people that I run into, and they're like, oh, well, who are some guests coming up? And I'm like, well, I got this guy, this friend of mine from high school, and I tell them about the running piece that we'll get to. And then I mentioned Tyler, the Creator, and they're just like, what? And so here we are. But you're so much more than just a tangential relationship, right? You were a really close friend in high school, and we were on a cross-country team that now has grown into this, people know Pelican Rapids is having a good cross-country program.
Really? We have a good one now.
We do, yeah.
Because we struggled to field a team.
You and I were on a boys team that had 3 members, and you're looking at 2 of them.
My sister, for my birthday this last year, she came across an old packet of records of from 97 or something. And I was looking through that, and a lot of our races, we didn't even have a full team. You need 5 people to have a team, and we were incomplete. We were most of those races.
3 independent homies running for ourselves, but we spent.
That's cool to hear. That team's doing really good.
Yeah, we were 3 independent guys on that cross country team. We ran a lot. We worked together at a golf course for 3 years.
Yeah, we had the same job.
Yeah, we had the same job, and in the winters we would cross country ski, and we would we were pretty inseparable there for about a 3-year stretch of time. You were 2 years older than me, and
technically I think I'm only a year older.
Yeah, that's
we were 2 grades apart.
Yeah, we were 2 grades apart. Yeah,
I was one of the younger people in my grade, and you were one of the oldest.
I was an old dog in mine.
Grade, yeah.
But we spent a ton of time together, and then you went off to college, and our love for running and the golf course kind of led you to I'm so passionate about golf courses. Mm-hmm. And tell me, I think you were even working on like building core samplers for aerating machines, or you had science fair projects that were like legit and did well.
Very intense.
And I think like patent pursuit may have even been happening during that time.
I got a patent.
Okay, see?
Yeah.
So
it has since lapsed. It is now in the public domain. I wasn't ever able to sell it, but I actually was able to get a patent for it.
Yeah, so you were doing like major turf management stuff, and you were going to go off and be like super dude in the golf course world.
Yeah, I was bound and determined.
And yeah, you headed down to the University of Minnesota with like these big dreams, and you had some big successes at science fair on a big scale. And then you like literally dropped off the map, including from me, for 2-ish years. And when you came back up for air, you were not, I was like, I don't even know this person anymore. Like, what the hell happened? So I know in hindsight now, obviously, what went on. But I think that's a really important place to start, because it's going to, like, everything else we talk about ties back to that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man, like, living the dream, and then you vanished. What happened?
Yeah. And you know, you were one of only like 3 people that I actually stayed in touch with, like, for the majority. Yeah, there was that period where you and I didn't even really talk.
Yep.
But I still kept in some sort of contact with you, like, and nobody else, like 2 other people. That was it. Now, I reconnected with a lot of people from high school in my 20th class reunion. Now I'm like plugged back into the community, and I talk to a lot of these people now. But I think there was definitely a period where I was like, I don't, like, I'm not going to reach out to any of these people, because I think, like, I had created sort of a mythology myself in high school. Like, everyone was like, people, like, one of my nicknames was like Dr. Wichmann, you know, because they were like, you know, I had the good grades, I did the science fair, I was in all these activities, and I was very, very busy with all these things. And I think there was a lot of expectations that I was going to go on and do some things, and when things didn't turn out, I think I had a lot of shame because of that. You know, like, I was like, well, I'm kind of letting everybody down by not doing what I said I was going to do. I told everyone this is what I'm going to do, and then I don't do it, you know. And the reason why I didn't do it was, I think, pretty obvious at the time. My parents split up. It was a really bad divorce. One thing, they didn't tell me right away that they split up. It was weird. Like, I'd always call home on Sundays. That was like our thing from college. And my dad would answer. I talked to him for a little bit, and he'd make up some story like, oh, your mom's outside or busy with your sister or something, and she'll call you right back. Well, this is before cell phones. I mean, people had cell phones, but not everyone did.
Right.
And I didn't have call waiting or anything like that. I just had a regular phone.
Yeah.
And my mom would call back shortly after. I would assume that she's calling from the house phone.
Walked in from the garden.
Right, exactly. Come to find out, like 2 months later, she had been calling from like 2 towns away.
Yeah.
You know, she had moved out of my dad.
Yeah.
Met another guy, and, you know, left my dad for this guy. And I don't totally blame my mom for that.
Yeah.
My dad was not a good husband to her. And he admits that to this day. Now, of course, he's remarried and is a much better husband. He learned the hard way, you know, and, you know, which our parents are not perfect, and they can learn it at an old age too. You know, it's not just us young kids that need to be taught; it's the parents too. And but yeah, he wasn't a very good husband, and my mom probably wasn't a very good wife, and it led to it took off. Well, anyway, so she, you know, it kind of kept this up for a couple months. Like I had no idea that they moved out, and then finally it was like homecoming, it's like end of October. She'd already been moved out for like 2 months. And she calls me. She's like, I left your dad. Like, boom, like out of nowhere. I didn't even know they were having marital problems.
Yeah. Jeez.
You know, it was like really super secretive.
Yeah.
Like, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so that was really hard. But I kind of kept pushing forward because sometimes when things don't go your way, it's often better to just, you know, keep the sails into the wind and push forward. So I I kept up my studies, and I did everything that I thought I could do. Spring comes around. So this is in the fall.
Yeah.
Spring comes around.
Is this your freshman year?
No, this would have been my sophomore year.
Okay.
Freshman year, I did great.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, I was still doing really great.
Yeah.
I was working at a golf course in the summer down there, real nice country club.
Yeah.
Great gig. Still like full sail ahead.
Yeah. I should add that I do remember you were good your freshman year. We were in touch a lot.
Yes.
And then, because I remember hearing about all that job and like in great detail as we would have done in a conversation with one another.
Yep.
So going into, so you get through your freshman year, everything's amazing.
Yeah, my grades are great. I think I made the dean's list.
Yeah, and so sophomore year, everything starts unraveling, or at least the potential for unravel is now there.
The personal life is unraveling, but a lot of times what happens in your personal life doesn't always translate into your professional or scholastic life until, you know, you can still often sort of push through it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you and I are very similar in when we get focused on something. You know, we stay pretty well focused on something. It can take a bit to derail us.
Yeah. We get a lot done, but we don't necessarily do anything else.
Correct. Yeah. No, I think that's very accurate. So I just kind of kept plugging away. Spring comes around, and I get another phone call from my mom. Phone calls from my mom are not good sometimes, especially during this era.
Yeah, you didn't have caller ID to be like, I'm not dealing with this.
No, I didn't have caller ID. So this is where it gets really crazy. So her fiance at the time, they're now married, but they weren't married at this point. I don't even think the divorce had actually been finalized yet. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. But her partner was car bombed.
I've heard like whispers of this story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like legit, like IRA, like car bombing.
Yep.
And seriously injured. It's amazing he didn't die from it. They had to reconstruct like his whole right side.
Yeah.
And he was in the hospital for a long time. It was it was devastating. Well, of course, you know, the first suspect is my father, right?
Yep.
And, you know, my sister's got a weird sense of humor. And she was like at home during this whole time. She's younger than me.
You're younger than me,
right?
Yeah.
So there's a family story that we like to tell where Marie had left a note for my dad, and my dad comes home with a note, and it's like, neighbor borrowed the mower, grandma called, the feds were here. Yeah. Real story.
Yeah.
So they searched the whole cabin, our house. They searched everything. You know, my dad had a lie detector test. Like, it was a full-on investigation.
Yeah.
Now, he had a rock-solid alibi, and it was clear he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But the case, is, as far as I know, is still open.
That's crazy.
I don't think they ever found the guy.
That's crazy.
So, obviously, my parents are not ever getting back together. My mom doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom probably still thinks my dad did it. But whatever. It's, you know, another here and there. So, so that happens. And now this is the end of the school year.
Right.
So now you can kind of coast through at this point.
Yeah. You
know, to get through. But I'm real fragile. Real fragile.
Yeah.
And I get through that summer working probably at the golf course again. I don't even remember. But starting back at school, now junior year, you got to kind of start ramping up.
Yep.
You know, the classes are getting harder. You're kind of more in your major now. Like your generals are over, and now you're focusing on your actual the studies for your major, which was mine was horticulture with turfgrass management. I wanted to become a golf course superintendent. That was my goal since I was like 15.
Yep.
And so I'm real fragile. Well, then September 11th happens.
Yeah, of course.
And I didn't know anyone from September 11th.
Yeah, didn't need to.
But it didn't, like, it could have been anything.
Yeah.
I could have just had a bad day.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
But that was like only a week into school. Like, they shut down the school for at least a day. So then I got, you know, and I had one class that was only on Tuesday nights. So that whole class was out for that whole week.
Yeah.
So then next week, they're like, we got to do double the work because we missed last week. But I just didn't go to school for a couple of days. Like I was just so overwhelmed by the emotions of what happened on that day. And that's what broke me. That was the final like straw. And then I just was done. And I actually, a good friend of mine at church, older man, was kind of my mentor. Mm-hmm. And he's like, man, you got to talk to somebody. He helped get me into therapy. Okay. It's really important to have somebody in your life, older person who can kind of like give you some pointers on how to get through life. And I didn't feel like I could get that from my parents. Right. Usually it's a parent too, but course. Not during this period.
No.
My parents were they were just
part of an FBI investigation at the time.
I mean, they were caught up in their own thing. They didn't have a lot of capacity left to give it to me.
Yeah. No, and I'm not trying to make light of all of that, but I think like it is the ridiculousness of like, what happened? Like,
it's so fantastic. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up.
No,
it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, I do want to talk. I see this a lot where students, sometimes they're my students, sometimes they're my athletes. They are one of the younger kids in the family, and usually it happens after the last kid goes to college. And like within 3 months, mom and dad get divorced.
Yep, it's real common.
And it just that kid up so bad. And I think there's a lot of reasons it messes with them. You lived that experience. Why was it so jarring to you? And why, I think everybody else doesn't always have sympathy for those college-age kids that like, you are at this time in life where you're like, I don't really understand who I am or what's going on. Mm-hmm. And now the most stable thing in my life is gone. Why do you think, and you're not obviously, just like I'm not the bipolar expert, you're not the parents got divorced in college expert, but in your lived experience, why is that so jarring to just your identity and who you are and everything about?
Yeah, I think you expect your parents to be a stabilizing force in your life. And I think they hit it really well that their marriage wasn't good. Mm-hmm. I think I also maybe just couldn't see it. When you live in something, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see outside of it. Yeah. Maybe people around me, maybe you tell me, did it look like my parents were having a great marriage at the time? I don't know. Maybe you saw something I didn't see. Who knows? I mean, that was 25, 30 years ago.
As a 16-year-old, I would have been pretty oblivious to what it should even look like.
And so maybe older people might have seen it, but what are they going to tell a 18-year-old kid that's, stuff. So I maybe didn't see how bad it was. I see in hindsight how bad it was. Yeah. And now I can look back and be like, oh man, that thing that happened when I was a senior in high school, that was a harbinger of things to come, and but at the time you don't know, you don't see it, and you just assume everything's great. And so then when it sort of comes out of nowhere, my sister was there. She, you'd have to ask her. I mean, she probably saw it more than I did.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was apart from, but then I also wasn't, I didn't have to live with. It's so interesting how we're only like 3 years apart and we grew up in the same household, but we had such vastly different experiences. Yeah, of course. Because I was gone, I was separate from it, and she was in it the whole time. Yeah. She put herself to bed. She made her own meals. My dad was a shell of a man. She got herself to school. It's amazing that she turned out as successful as she did. She could have really ran around with the wrong crowd. Yeah. And because she had no rules, no stability.
No, but she was just trying to survive.
Right.
And thankfully she did it in the right way.
Now she's a doctor.
Yeah, in a positive way. Yeah. And she's probably super empathetic to a lot of people because of that.
It's interesting. She does mental health.
Okay.
That's what she does for a living.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's clear that these things, those things led her down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. The crew at 701 Cycle and Sport in Bismarck, North Dakota has taken a favorite local gravel route carved out by the Heart River, full of rolling hills, and expanded it to give you a new opportunity to explore North Dakota. The Lionheart Gravel Classic on July 13th will take you through the Lion's Den, down Heart Racing descents, Up climbs that will have you wondering why everyone says North Dakota is so flat. Come race this inaugural year and celebrate afterwards with a post-race party on Main Street in Mandan, North Dakota. Mandan, of course, where the West begins. $7,000 prize purse, you heard that right, is available with equal payouts to men's and women's divisions. In the 100-mile overall, first gets $1,500, second is $1,000, and third is $500. While in the 65-mile category, first is $250, second is $150, and third is $100. And if that's not enough, if you can't get enough of North Dakota gravel, you can come back in October for the Alchemist Gravel Fest on October 5th. Racers will start at Grainer Park south of Mandan, North Dakota, and climb their way out of the Missouri River Valley onto the bluffs of Morton County. The 55-mile course will test you with minimum maintenance roads, fast descents, and some of the longest climbs around. But your effort does not go unrewarded, as the views are spectacular throughout the race. After the dust is settled, awards will be had, as well as hot off the grill food. Not up for 55 miles? Don't you worry. They have got you covered with the Elixir Race, a 30-mile version of the course that is just right. Additionally, there's camping available at the start-finish. Seriously, if you live in the Midwest, you cannot go wrong heading to Bismarck, North Dakota for these races. And I can tell you from a lot of experience, the crew at 701 Sport and Cycle know how to not only run an amazing bike shop, but they know how to host a really good race and put on a good time. There's links to both of these amazing events in the episode description, or you can check them out yourself at 701cycleandsport.com. Absolutely. So you get stuck. You basically get stuck. You got a mentor that's like, hey, you got to go get some help here. But for all intents and purposes, you get stuck. Mm-hmm. And the next time I see you, I don't know if it's later that year or it's quite a while, but you're like,
what was I doing?
You're like, I taught myself how to drum and I'm running sound now. And I was like,
oh, yeah, okay.
You know, and like, I haven't talked to you now for like 2 years, and I had known that your parents had gone through this, and I was like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. So maybe, give us the 5-minute fill in the gap part here of how do we get from that stuck guy on U of M's campus to where we're starting to traject into where we are today.
Yeah, well,
and maybe it's not 5 minutes.
September 11th was the moment when I changed.
Yeah.
In the moment.
Yeah.
And I was probably the deepest depression I was during those days. And so most of September, I was pretty much sitting on a couch doing virtually nothing. I certainly stopped going to class. My therapist actually gave me a prescription to cancel some of my classes.
Okay.
Like, because in college, there's a point at which you can't drop out of a class.
Yeah.
But you can still get out. You can
drop it.
Somehow drop it. And one of the things was literally a doctor's note.
Okay.
Could allow you to drop it past the deadline.
Yeah.
And so I was able to drop half of my classes, the hardest ones.
Okay.
I kept my easiest ones. So I was down to I went from 4 to 2 classes.
Okay.
This would have been fall of my junior year, and that helped a lot actually, mm-hmm. because it took a lot of stress and pressure off my plate. But on the flip side, it also gave me too much free time, and free time can be real dangerous when you're going through a mental crisis, as I'm sure you are well aware. So you do need to fill that time somehow.
Yeah.
I had never had a job during the school year.
Okay.
When we were growing up. And did you work during the school year?
Only in the fall and spring at the golf course.
But that
didn't count.
I mean, we only worked a few weeks into September and a few weeks into May.
Correct.
It was once it got cold, it was kind of.
No, I was like you. I didn't have a real job.
It was basically summer was when you worked.
Yeah.
And that was, and your parents were teachers. My parents were teachers. Yeah. Your job is to go to school.
Yeah.
And so we didn't work during the school year. So I never worked during the school year, and I didn't in college until my junior year. Mm-hmm. But I needed something to fill my time.
Yeah.
And so my friend Sarah, who I knew from the whole music club, it's like a music club in the students. I feel like a lot of colleges have this, where they have like, you can actually see bands right on campus, and it's usually run by students. I was a volunteer because I enjoy live music. You know, we used to go to shows all the time.
Yeah, music was like a huge piece of our relationship.
Always
in high school.
was.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we loved going to shows, we loved talking music, listening to music. And so that never changed. Even though I was focused on turf grass, I always loved music. So I spent a lot of my time going to shows, volunteering at the shows.
Yeah.
And then my friend Sarah was like, hey, there's a job opening at the student center to do audiovisual technician.
Yeah.
Basically this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, running cameras, running lighting, running soundboards. And she's like, you should apply. I was like, man, I need a job.
Yeah.
You know, I think I need to be distracted. And I didn't know any of this stuff. I mean, I could have learned it maybe in high school. I was on stage, but I didn't actually learn the soundboard here. I didn't learn any of the lighting stuff.
Correct.
They had like a theater arts class when we were in high school, but I didn't take it, and which would have been nice. But I totally lied my way through that interview. I just said, I did theater in high school. Like, I'm qualified.
Yeah.
No clue. I didn't know the difference between an XLR cable and a whatever, you know. This is an XLR cable, by the way. I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. But I faked my way in.
Of course.
Fake it till you make it. That's how we do in the music business.
Yeah.
And I got hired, and that's where I learned how to do sound and lights and like the basics.
Yeah.
And that was really good. It really distracted me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those distractions are so important in those times. We do need some structure.
Got to have something.
You can't have a lot of free time.
Maybe not coursework that's going to really stress you out.
Right. Right.
But maybe a job that you actually find interest in.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I picked up the drums, you know. I was like, well, I need to be making music.
Yeah.
You know, and weren't you a trumpet player in high school?
Yeah,
too?
yeah.
Yeah, we were on the band together. Yeah. And but I didn't want to play trumpet.
No.
Beating against drums seemed really good for me.
Yeah, you wanted to make the music that we had grown up being in love with.
Right.
And you know, arguing about over lunch every day at the golf course. So I don't want to move too quick away from the U of M time there. If you're looking at that same person today, that's stuck. You know, you had a mentor, and you said people need mentors in their life. But what are you, with your lived experiences, saying to that guy right now about, like, dude, what do you need to do X? Like, how are you telling that person to get help or to move forward in life?
Like, are you talking about someone who's in college, or just like that stage of your life?
Yeah, no, just somebody who's kind of mentally in that place.
Mentally in that place. I mean, I think you do have to seek some kind of purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think a big problem with society, and I think a lot of mental health is aggravated by what society values, right? The accomplishments that society finds value in are not always the accomplishments that really people can derive purpose from.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, society is going to put a lot of focus on this guy winning an Olympic race, and that's high value. Yeah. But then here's a stay-at-home parent who's struggling with a handful of kids, and their partner either isn't there or not very helpful or whatever. Yeah. And society doesn't value that. Yeah. You know, we say, oh, you made that choice to have children. You know, we're not going to help you out. You know, but I think, you know, we need to invest in that as a society. And I'm not trying to get on a soapbox to say that society needs to change, but I think we need to understand that this is what we're up against. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, the mental health is aggravated because they're caught in this mentality that society doesn't value what I find important, you know, what brings me purpose. Yeah. And so a lot of people will not do that thing that could actually bring them a lot of joy because they have been told, or it's been internalized, they've been conditioned from living in the society that thing doesn't have value. Right? You know, I think there was a lot of years where my family was like, when are you going to get a real job? You know, like working the music business is not considered by some a real job.
Correct.
You know, now that I'm working with famous people, oh, wow, that's great. That's cool, man. Look how valuable that is. But when I was, you know, struggling in the underground club scene where I'm making $50 in drink tickets.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just trying to get the vocals above the guitar amp and people are throwing stuff at me because it sounds like crap.
Yeah.
You know, there's no value in that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and to a certain degree, there is not much value in that. From an economic standpoint, you know, I was pretty dirt poor.
Yeah.
You know, and poverty can be real stressful too.
Yeah.
You know, luckily I didn't grow up poor, but I had poor periods.
Yeah.
Trying to get into a business that doesn't make it easy for you.
Yeah. How did you, you know, I mean, what we're really talking about is identity and where we
Exactly.
place our identity.
Exactly.
It's where a couple of my more recent interviews, the one I did yesterday, that'll be out in a week, we got deep into identity and how it affects just our daily lives. And how did you find your way? You know, you go do and you start learning how to do sound. And I remember you telling me, like, you'd come and you'd be so jacked about, like, yeah, I'm running sound. And I'd be like, well, what are you working on? Thinking, like, to our conversations in high school about music. And you'd be like, man, I ran, like, this, like, dance underground, like, for, like, 4 days this week. And I'm doing bands. And I'd kind of be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Like Ethiopian cultural event.
Yeah.
You know, Thai dance.
Right. So
tabla player. I ruined a tabla solo one time because I failed miserably.
That's amazing. Yeah. So like, how did you find though that place where you were like, I'm cool doing this, like whatever it is, you know, you had no idea at the time, like I'm going to be the guy for these famous people down the road, and they're going to trust me, and I'm going to travel the world with them.
I may have never gotten to that spot. I could have been just doing whatever.
Yeah.
Sound at my church.
Right.
Which is great.
Yeah. So what ultimately landed you to where like, I'm cool with this? Because I think you are right that we have to find where we are first before all the, yes, I have to take my meds every day. Yes, I have to exercise, do all this stuff. But if I'm not happy with who I am to begin with,
right,
like those other things are going to have a hard time doing their job. So how did you get to the place where you were like, I'm cool with this?
Well, for me, it was brokenness that made me reinvent myself.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the takeaway for people listening is that that's not the way to find your true identity. It would be not, it'd be nice if you could just sort of arrive at an identity, like somehow find a way to break through a lot of the conditioning that we've grown up with.
Yes.
And everyone does. We all are conditioned. Society is really good at conditioning us to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think an older mentor could actually help people to break through a lot of that conditioning and get to a better place without going through the crisis and the rock bottom that I did.
Yes.
You know, so I do believe in a path towards that without having to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, that's what it took. Because I was, and I mean, you know, we get so focused, and maybe for me, maybe that was inevitable. I don't know. Maybe I needed it to totally break me down so I could rebuild it back up again. But I don't know. We cannot do a controlled scientific experiment.
Yeah, that's a hard control. Yeah.
Right, to see if I had arrived at a different place, had that not happened. Maybe if my parents hadn't split up, maybe I'd be on a golf course right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be vastly unhappy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I would be great. Maybe I'd be fine. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, the music business isn't very good for mental health either.
Right.
And I have a history of it. My grandfather was bipolar. My uncle was bipolar. I've never been diagnosed, but I've been on medication.
Yeah.
I've certainly struggled. My dad's had some struggles.
Yeah.
My sister's had some struggles.
Yeah.
Nice thing is she's in mental health, so she is actually, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that's why she's there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I said earlier, like you and I were running together, like literally and figuratively, we ran together for 3-year period in high school.
Pretty much almost every day.
Yeah. And we were running, and if it was winter and we couldn't run, we would go out, and there's a state park between us where we lived, and we skied a lot. And, that was such a huge part of just that I would truly say part of our friendship's identity was like exercise and doing this. And like, we're going to just go exercise together.
Conversations we had. And,
yeah. And like you said, with the mental health struggles you have and what we know about me, it makes sense that we were rolling together and pretty much in sync.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We were on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So running comes back into the picture at some point along there, and and when I say never, it has literally never stopped day to day since it really came in. And I want to talk about your running streak and how that started. And maybe like running came back into the picture sooner than the streak. But
yes, you're right. Your memory is very good, John.
You have not. This interview was a lot easier to research for than some of my other ones because I just
had to take it out of your memory.
Yeah, I just had to access it. But you sent me the number the other day, and if I did the math right, it's something like 17 and a half years where you have run every single day at least 1 mile for 17 and a half years.
Correct.
Plus or minus a few days.
Yeah. Last day I did not run was March 4th. In 2007.
That's incredible.
That was the last day I didn't run. And I ran this morning, so we're good now.
We're good.
I'm good till the day.
Yeah.
I'm good through today.
Yeah, that's crazy. So where did running come back in? And you were just like, I have to do this to feel good.
Yeah.
To feel myself. When did that start happening, and how regular was it happening then?
Well, a running streak is definitely my modus operandi. As with you, when I do something, I go all out.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to mess around.
Yeah.
I actually tried. I had stopped running. Well, we ran a lot in high school, and I ran a little bit in college. But then when my parents split up, I actually did stop running for a while. Mm-hmm. And but part of that, getting a job. Learning how to play the drums, running was another one of those things that I started doing again.
Yeah.
And I learned pretty quickly that if I wasn't consistent, I would either, if I wasn't running every day, I would run no days. Mm-hmm. And I would go, a lot of people, they can do 3-4 times a week or, take a day or two off and they're really good. But I couldn't, if I took a couple of days off, it turned into a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I had heard about running streaks at this point. Runner's World was already publishing articles about guys who've been running for 30 years. And so I knew it was a thing. So I didn't invent it for myself. I knew it existed, but I was like, hey, this is for me.
Yeah.
This is something.
Of course you did.
Right.
That's totally, so your personality.
Totally fits in with my whole scene. And so I tried a couple of streaks actually in my early 20s, and I'd get sick, or it would something, or I'd fall into depression or something, and I would stop doing it. None of them ever really lasted a year. See, to get on, so there's an association, the U.S. Running Streak Association. To be on their official list, you have to do a minimum of 1 mile every day for a year.
Okay.
They won't even accept you can be a member.
Yeah.
They'll take your money.
Yeah.
But you don't get on their list till you've done it for a year.
Okay.
Right. So I never reached a year for a couple years. I'd make like 200 days or something. But if you make it past 30 days, that whole thing about doing a habit for 30 days, it really does stick after 30 days. But I was struggling to get past that year. Well, but as I got older and I got more mature, basically I was 25, going on 26, and I was like, well, I'm going to try it again, and March 5th, 2007, I went on for a run and haven't missed a day since. So.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So, and like, you do not live in Miami where this is conducive to like going out.
And,
right?
and there's a guy in Miami.
No, I know.
Who has run every single day on the same stretch of beach. Not only does he run every day on the same stretch of beach, he does the same mileage, which was 8 for like 45 years. He's now down to 5.
Okay.
But he's doing 5 miles every day.
That's crazy.
And at the same time every day.
Yeah.
Like 5:30.
So you can just go run with him because
I've ran with him like 15 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
But you don't live in Miami.
No.
You live in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And like winter, I don't care if it's a mile or not. There are winter days.
It's rough.
Where I can't imagine how rough it is.
I have run on a treadmill. Treadmill counts.
Okay.
You can do a treadmill. There was actually a debate, I think, 20 years ago in the running association.
Of course there was.
If that, we're a particular type of person, and some people, of course, would argue, "Wow, that treadmill shouldn't count." But there's a woman I know. I don't know if she's an actual streak runner, but she runs 20 miles most days on a treadmill.
That's
only.
Insane.
Only. She has a whole Instagram account. I don't remember what her name is, but she's famous in the world of
She needs to hear our free time speech. She has too much free time.
Man, 20 miles on a treadmill?
A long time.
I mean, when I've been training for marathons, I could do 20 miles, but I got to have some scenery. I don't know how she does it. So anyway, treadmill counts.
Yeah.
So there were, but I would say in 17 years, I've ridden on the treadmill like 10 times.
Okay.
Because I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate running on a treadmill. But on some of the really cold days, I sucked it up and went on the treadmill. But most of the days, 40 below, I've ran 40 below.
Yeah.
I
know you've texted me and
108 above.
I know you've texted me that you're like, oh, I'm super sick, but I got my mile in. And
I ran when I was super sick. I've run intoxicated. There was one time my neighbor invited me over, and we're just sitting in his backyard, and he's like, hey, let's drink some tequila. And we had a little too much to drink. I went back inside, and I fell asleep on the couch.
Oh.
And that could have been it. That could have been the end. I wake up at 10
over.
o'clock. Yeah, I wake up at 10 p.m., look at my watch, freak out because I'm like, I'm gonna lose my streak, and I'm rough.
Yeah,
I'm really rough. My neighbor did me in, man. I still got out there.
You got the mile in.
I did that mile. It was about a 14-minute mile.
Yeah.
But I got the mile down. There's a record of it. I have a phone. I used to keep a paper log.
Yeah.
And when I first submitted my numbers, I actually submitted my paper. Like you got to have some record.
Yeah.
But now it's all digital. It's on my phone.
Okay.
But I'd say the first 7 years were paper logs.
Okay.
And I still have all that.
You've shown them to me.
Yeah, but now it's all digital. And so I have record of it.
So you have run for 17 and a half years every single day.
Every day.
Where does that put you on this like giant list that's been gathered for current?
What do you think? Take a guess.
I think you're in the top 10, but I could be wrong. Not even close?
Not even close. There's a lot of neurotic people out there, John. You and I are not the only ones who are neurotic in this world.
So
not even close.
Where are you on this list, and what's the longest?
Take a guess.
Are you in the top 30?
No. Keep going.
Top 100?
Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
This interview just got a whole lot less interesting.
I'm a newbie. The community is interesting.
Give us the number.
I haven't looked it up, but I think I'm in the top 160.
Okay.
I think I'm like 160 or 161. Now this is entire world.
Yeah.
Most people are in the United States.
Okay.
I might be in the top 150 in the U.S.
Okay. Amazing.
But there's a good 160 people. Well, I mean, you get to 17 years, people only drop out if they die, if they get injured. That's about it. There's really only two. There's only two reasons why people quit at this point.
Yeah.
Like who do you think number one is? Not who, but how many years do you think number one is?
I bet it's at least like 50 years.
Oh yeah. Keep going.
60?
No, not 60.
Okay.
I think he's either just hit 55 or about to hit 55.
That's crazy.
Yeah. John Sutherland, who is actually in the music business.
Yeah.
Believe it or not,
Yeah.
he was a music journalist.
Okay.
I'm sure he's retired now. All the older guys, they're obviously 70s.
Yeah. But for you, ultimately, like you and I have had this conversation, it's not just about like, oh, I need the next check on. Part of it is checking the list off, right?
Well, I do need to run tomorrow.
Yeah. It's exactly right. Like it gives you something to look forward to.
Yes, I do have to do that.
And is it that finite of just like, this is the thing I have to do? Like I talk about list making, and I always talk about wake up. Okay, we did that. Is this like that?
I mean, pretty much
of activity?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it is. Yeah. I mean, I still like to. Some days when I'm feeling good, I like to run hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I can still. I did 7 miles this morning. It was great.
Yeah.
I didn't do it that fast. I mean, there's days I can still probably run an 8-minute mile.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling really good.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good for. I don't train.
Yeah.
I literally just run.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
No, it's activity. That's what, like it's activity. Go move.
I just get out there.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's fantastic.
It's literally a check mark. I mean, the nice thing is, as you know, being as competitive as we were when we were young, I'm never going to get those times again.
Right.
And that bothers me.
Yeah.
It does. It's a neurosis. Like but you know what? I'm going to have a personal best tomorrow. I just had a personal best this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Every day is a personal best. So it's fun for me because it matches with my neurosis of like I can still be better.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow I'm slightly better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it's another day.
Yeah.
But I don't have to like dwell on the fact that I can't run 5-minute miles like I used to, and that kind of stuff, which was a part of my identity when I was young.
Yeah.
That was very important to me. It was very important that I beat you in every race.
And you did.
Well, I did, but you were also younger than me.
Yeah.
And then I stopped right when you were about able to beat me, so I could claim that prize forever.
I know that your final race as a senior, I was like to where I could like almost catch you at the very end, and you were so happy that I didn't.
Oh, that would have been rough for me. It would have been hard for me. But that is part of, that's part of who we are, is that we get caught up in a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
And when I was younger, that stuff mattered a lot more. Now, of course, it doesn't matter quite the same. But there's still always a hint of it.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said it still didn't matter to me to some degree.
Yeah.
But
we're going to come back to running in a second. But I do want to touch on, you start this sound journey in college. You're working the club. You're trying to get the vocals above the ambience of the guitar amp, which is
crowd talking.
Yes,
it's brutal.
Yeah,
those days were rough.
And
in smoke-filled rooms back then, you could smoke in those bars.
Of course.
And I, being an athlete, that killed me.
Yeah,
it was rough.
Yeah, but today, you are the front of house sound man for all of Tyler the Creator's shows, and for people that don't know.
Tell them what front of house sound means.
Yeah, well, we'll go over that next. Tyler, the Creator, is arguably the top rap artist in the world right now. And
in 2022, I think his tour was the highest grossing hip hop tour of 2022.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you tease me with treats like you'll send me a picture from Lollapalooza and you're like, oh, we're about to headline, and you got your board and
just headline Coachella actually.
Yeah, see, okay, so like this is big time, like big time music industry.
Yep.
And front of house sound means if you're at a concert and you're looking at the stage, sometimes up on the stage you'll see a sound guy. He's just running the monitors for the artists.
So and the artist can hear what they need to hear. Yep.
Front of house is when you are looking at the stage, and behind you usually there's like a homie at a big soundboard, and they're controlling what you hear out in the audience.
The audience hears, yep.
That's your job.
Yep.
Yep. So how do we go on this journey from like you're getting crap thrown at you because you messed up the Ethiopian cultural dance solo to you're the sound guy for Tyler the Creator at Coachella just a few weeks ago. Like, what? Fill the gaps in here for me.
There's a lot of gaps.
And maybe not fill all of them, but like what precipitated you getting to where I remember at some point around 2010, your dad telling me who you were touring with.
Yep.
And it was...
That's when I started touring, was 2010.
It was like with like classic rock style stuff or whoever you were working with, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, a little bit though. Prior to that, I was doing some regional touring with a production company. So there's sort of two sort of paths in the business. There's the production company, which there's companies that provide all the sound, light, staging for artists, and then there's actually working for the artist, right? Those who work for the artist just do sound for the artist. If you're like at WeFest, if you're with the production company, you're going to set up the sound system, the lighting for all the artists at WeFest, but you're probably not going to mix any of the bands.
Right.
All those bands that play at WeFest, they all have their own people, right? But they don't carry all the speakers. They don't carry all the lights. Yeah. That's very, very expensive. You come in and you use what's there. Yeah. So that's how I got started, was working at a production company. There was a production company that at the University of Minnesota we would do the small shows in the music club, but if we did a bigger show or a big national act came through, we would have to bring that. We had to hire this company to come in because we didn't have the equipment and the capability to throw on a big show.
Yeah.
And so we'd bring in a production company. They'd bring in the big stage, the big sound, the big lights. They would run it. And through my work at the whole music club, I got to meet and get to know those guys. Mm-hmm. And so when I graduated and I had decided at this point that I wasn't going to continue with the turfgrass, I was kind of reinventing myself. Yeah. Actually, one of the guys from the company, I think the owner, he was like, well, what are you doing? Mm. And I was like, I have no idea. I barely graduated. I literally squeaked through. I got the bare grades I could to finish out my last year because I had pretty much checked out.
Yep.
But actually, it was music that saved me because I had gotten selected to be in charge of the whole music club my senior year. You had to go through an application process, and you get selected out of a whole bunch of candidates. And since I'd been volunteering all 4 years, I was kind of not a shoo-in, but I was like, I got pushed up to the top of the list, and then I won the position. But you had to be a student to do it. So that forced me to have to at least complete my grade, or complete my degree. Because if I would have dropped out of the whole music club, So I did the absolute bare minimum I could because I wanted to do that music job. Yep. And so, but that's how I got to know the production company. Mm-hmm. And so then after school, they're like, what's your plans? I was like, well, I'm not doing turfgrass. I'm like, well, why don't you come work for us? And so that got me out of the clubs and into doing the production company stuff. And so, I did a few little tours where I was like setting up the gear for like ZZ Top or like Three Doors Down. I mean, I didn't really know Korn. We did a bunch of random, like all bands I was super hip to.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to meet him. I didn't hang out with him. You
didn't get a fanboy. You just got to be the hard worker.
That's a bad look. That's pretty phony. You don't want to walk in there and try getting autographs from artists when you're supposed to be working. Yeah. But it was a cool experience. Yeah. And now the problem is to break into touring, it's pretty tough in Minneapolis to do that. You pretty much got to go to LA, New York, Nashville for sure, if you want country, maybe Austin, Texas. Those are kind of like the main music places that you can get plugged into bands. That's not to say there weren't a lot of bands in Minneapolis, and it's not to say that I put a lot of effort into trying to break into that scene, because I did really want to tour. I love to travel, and I wanted to get in that, but you have to – no one's going to take a chance on you. Yeah. So you have to somehow find a band that's willing to take a chance on you and willing to work with you, and that's really hard. And it was really a struggle for a lot of years. Probably 10 years I tried to like weasel my way, willing to work for free, whatever it took. Yeah. But and I did there was a few little random things that I picked up, but it never turned into anything. But one of the nice things is that we did have a pretty prominent underground hip hop label in Minneapolis, Rhymesayers. Okay. And they're hip hop. Yep. And I don't know about you, but there wasn't a lot of hip hop around Pelican Rapids. Like, this is more of a country music scene, classic rock scenes. Yeah. I didn't know anything about hip hop, but they were the guys in town. And at the clubs, I was working with hip hop. I did a lot of hip hop in the clubs. Yeah. And the company that I worked with, they did a lot of like shows for Atmosphere and Rhymesayers. Atmosphere is one of the main artists on Rhymesayers. Yeah. And so that actually got me sort of past that threshold of being able to actually talk to the artist or talk to their team. You don't want to ever talk to the artist, you talk to their team. Yeah. And I had expressed interest that I wanted to do some touring. Mm-hmm. And so the Atmosphere guys, the crew that worked for Atmosphere, they had a front of house guy and a monitor guy and a lighting guy. Yeah. I got to know them pretty well, and I made it known to them that I was interested in touring. I mean, if not Atmosphere, somebody else. Yeah. And sure enough, they contacted me in 2010 and said that Brother Ali was looking for a guy. Okay. And Brother Ali was probably one of the more prominent artists on Rhymesayers at the time. And at that level of touring, Brother Ali has always kind of been a club level, right? There's clubs, there's like big theaters, small arenas, big arenas, stadiums. Yep. That's kind of the level. Yep. He's at the club level. Taylor Swift is at stadium level. It's a long way to get from one to the other. Yeah. And so at that level, you have to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I want to just do sound, but I had to do sound. I had to tour manage. One of the big reasons I got that job is I was a good driver. Brother Ali, if anyone knows this, he's legally blind. He has albinism. He's born with albinism.
Yep.
Typically, people who have albinism, the same genes that affect albinism also affect your eyesight.
Okay.
He's legally blind. He can't even get a driver's license. So, like, I kind of started out as his driver.
Yeah.
And I could do sound.
Yeah.
And I was organized. And so I could tour manage and I could book the hotels and advance with the venues, what we needed. And that's how I got the job.
Okay.
And I figured this was right. My wife had just gotten pregnant.
Okay.
And as you probably are well aware, because you've done some music, you've been in the music business a little bit, you played and stuff, but having a family when you're on tour is really, there's a reason why a lot of these guys are divorced, estranged from their children, and it's hard. And so I figured, well, this is probably my only chance. Yeah. You know, I'll get one tour, and that'll be it. And then I'll just kind of focus on my local work. And it went really well. But I went all out because I was just like, this is my last chance. I'm just going to go all out. And Ali really liked working with me. And he had another tour coming up with a guy named The Grouch. And he said, hey, can you do this tour? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. My wife still hasn't had a baby yet. So that led to that tour. And then Grouch liked me, and he took me out on another tour. Okay. Well, then my daughter comes, and I was like, okay, well, now this is it. But the guys that I was working with, Brother Ali, The Grouch, these artists were a little more established, and a lot of them had children. Mm-hmm. So these guys were not touring all the time. Sure. Which was great, because then they would do like maybe a month here or like 2 months. I'd only toured a couple times out of the year. Yeah. But it kept me relevant in that scene, because it's hard to get that first gig. But once you get the first gig, then it's like, oh, did you work for so-and-so? That's cool. That guy's cool. Come over and do this gig, And so it just led to one gig after another. And Grouch's brother, Brad, was the merch guy when I first started with Grouch. Well, Brad, in 2011, a buddy of his turned him on to this hip-hop collective called Odd Future. Okay. And they're like, hey, man, check this band out. They're crazy. And Brad's like, wow, these guys might be the future. And so he went in, and he actually got into their team. Okay. And he still is head of that whole, Tyler was a member of Odd Future. Okay. He was kind of the leading member. Yep. And he started a clothing line called Golf Wang. Okay. Brad spearheaded that. Okay. Brad's still the head of that. Yeah. Right? So Brad got in with them at the ground level. And then when they need a sound guy, like, he hit me up because we were pals. And he's like, hey, are you interested? And what's funny is originally I was not interested at all, because those guys were crazy. If you see some of those early like YouTube videos, go and look at Odd Future. Yeah. Like 2011 at the Roxy, Tyler, the creator, like destroys soundboard. Yeah. Like it literally at one point he like stomps on the soundboard and destroys it. The soundboard they have now at the Roxy in LA, Tyler bought that. Okay. 15 years ago. Right on. Destroyed.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, Tyler is super popular, but Mom, when you listen to this, you should not go search up Tyler, the creator, because
not the early stuff. His later stuff, he's mellowed out. He's grown up. I mean, the guy was like 18 years old. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. What is a kid going to, I mean, I don't, this is.
But phenomenal artist. Phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
So you start working with them, or Brad does.
Brad started working with them first. He offered to bring me on, and I wasn't interested initially, because I was like, I took it personally. They were like destroying microphones and soundboards. I was like, I don't want to work with these fools. Yeah. But then Tyler went off on his own and went solo and kind of grew up. And then a couple years later, actually, this will be 10 years, 2014, Brad hit me up again. He said, hey, listen, I know you weren't hip to the Odd Future thing, but Tyler he's grown up. He's different now. He's cool. Yeah. And what's funny is at the time I thought he was terrible. Yeah. But you know what? I didn't get it, because his music wasn't for me. It was for people that age. Yeah. I was in my 30s at this point, and he was 18 years old. Yeah. And so now I look back, I actually like that older stuff now. But I had to see what his new stuff was before I could go back and like the old stuff.
How long have you been touring now with him? For how many years?
10 years. So 2014 when he was solo now by this point, and I joined him in 2014. I've pretty much been with him ever since. I mean, I've
traveled the world with him.
All over the world. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were still doing clubs. You know, we were still doing First Avenue. Even in
Yeah.
2016 was the last time we played First Avenue. But then we were playing large theaters. We were playing small arenas.
Yeah.
Then big arenas. And we played Coachella when we were way down low on the list. We played Lollapalooza when we were way down low on the list, middle of the afternoon. And now we're headlining.
Yeah.
So it's like I was able to watch that ascent.
Yeah.
And that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure.
I mean, we used to be all on one bus together.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'd wake up in the morning and Tyler would have his robe on, like cleaning the front of the bus. Like he like goes to bed early and gets up early. He doesn't do any drugs. He doesn't drink at all. And I drink, but I never did drugs. But like, well, at least I shouldn't say I never did drugs. I haven't done drugs in a long time. But I was, believe it or not, in the music business, I didn't do any drugs. Like, you know, guys would be like smoking weed outside the bus. And me and Tyler would just be sitting there. You couldn't like smoke around him because he has asthma really bad too. This is all well-known information. He talks about it. And so you can't smoke around him. Like he's not hip to drugs and alcohol. None of that. He's totally straight edge. And it was like really calm, very calm on the bus. Which is not at all his persona to the public.
So at that time, you're traveling all on the bus, same bus together.
Yep.
I'm guessing today it is no longer like that.
I'll go many shows, not even seeing him. You know, he's got his own bus. He's got private jets.
Yeah.
I mean, last tour we did, there was like 17 trucks and like 5 or 6 buses with all the crew.
Yeah.
And since I'm at front of house, like the monitor guy sees him.
Sure, of course.
Because he's got to put on his in-ears and stuff like that every day. But I mean, I've gone months without ever being near him because I'm way out in the crowd and he's on stage. Yeah. And a lot of times he'll show up moments before he has to go on.
Of course.
And the moment he leaves the stage, he's out. Yeah. He's gone. He's back to his hotel or hopping on a jet or getting his.
But you have your crew within that group that you guys are tight and you've done your thing for a long time.
Yep.
Because you're a team essentially.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And what's really nice is Tyler really trusts us, so he can show up just before he goes on to perform because he knows that we got his back. Yeah. You know, we've been with him. Yeah. I've been with him for so many years now. We, you know, like Coachella, I finally got him to sound check. You know, he finally showed up to check because that's a big show, you know. Yeah. But most shows I don't see him at all. I don't talk to him at all. Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to him in rehearsals, and if there's a problem, I'll be called up to the principal's office. Something doesn't go well. Yeah. I mean, he wants to know what happened, you know, and he trusts me that I'll fix it. And there hasn't been many problems, but I've made a few boo-boos and had to learn from those, and you know. So
I usually ask guests a couple like ending questions that are a little more fun. Not that talking about this hasn't been really fun, but I'm going to tweak these a little bit because we're not going on a bike ride together. The first question I always ask is where should we go on a bike ride? And I'm going to tweak that. You have been all over the world. Mm-hmm. I remember getting a birthday greeting from you a few years ago, and you're like, I'm in Amsterdam this morning wandering around. And the time of when I got the text, it was very early in the morning in Amsterdam. So
it was probably still the night before for me.
Correct. Yes. So you have run in all of these places, obviously, because you've been with Tyler less than you've been on this running streak. Where has your like most beautiful mile been, or where you're just like, man, I would love to go back there and like, come on, John, let's go run a mile there?
Well, it would have to be probably a trail.
Okay.
I've always tried to find, look, wherever I'm at and I need to go for a run, I really try to find a bit of nature.
Yep.
And surprisingly, that's not as hard as you think it would be.
Right.
Our phones help a lot. And a lot of times I literally can just look at my phone, oftentimes within not very far from a hotel. Yeah. There's a nature trail. Yeah. And they're kind of everywhere. It's really kind of beautiful that a lot of these urban areas have set aside, urban areas have set aside like pieces of land where you can feel like you're not in the city. Yeah. I can't think of any one specific one, but but that concept of looking for a trail is like, if I see there's one near my hotel or near the venue or something, I get really excited.
Yeah. Not pavement is what you're saying.
Yeah. Although which pavement's fine too, but I mean, and even there's a lot of bike trails that like are still kind of in the woods or kind of in nature.
For sure.
It's paved. It doesn't need to be like a single track, like really, out there trail, but just something where I can, because the problem when you're on tour, man, is like you see the venue, you see the hotel, you're on your bus, you actually don't get, everyone's like, oh, go see the world. And it's like, you often don't. I mean, we don't have time. We don't have time to see the world. The last time I was in Europe with Tyler, we had shows like every day. I had like one day I got to sightsee and I was exhausted. And so I didn't do that much sightseeing. So it's you don't quite get to see the world. You think you get to see the world, but if you see if you see some trees, then I feel like I see. The world. So I don't have a spot, but I just finding a trail, man. Okay. Just wherever you're at, seek out that trail.
Yeah. Okay. So then normally I would say we're going on a bike ride and we're going to stop after like 4 hours at a gas station, and because that's like a bike rider's dream. You and I are just going to road trip, and we're going to stop at a gas station. What are your go-tos when we stop at a gas station for food, drink?
Man, so 6 months ago, it would have been like gummy worms and like Rockstar.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like disgusting stuff.
Okay. And now
at the time, but December, I decided to greatly reduce my sugar and caffeine.
Okay.
So now I've set this goal where I try to have no more than 50 grams of sugar in a day and 50 milligrams of caffeine. And that's not a lot.
Nope. That's a challenging amount.
A single can of pop is 50 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a can of pop since December.
Okay.
And a single cup of coffee is actually 100 milligrams of caffeine. And so if I have coffee, I will do a half a cup and I will dilute it down.
Okay.
Which I know is sacrilege to all these coffee drinkers out there. They're going to kill me. Yep. So I usually drink like tea now.
What are we getting at the gas station, Paul?
Nothing. There is nothing there that is good for me.
All right.
I literally can't. I mean, maybe I get a water. I literally can't. I used to always, every gas station I stopped at, I always got something.
Yep.
I haven't gotten some at a gas station. Actually, that's not true. Quick Trip has really amazing chicken, fried chicken.
Okay.
The fried chicken at Quick Trip is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You should do yourself a favor and try their fried chicken.
I think I was at 4 different Quick Trips yesterday between the project we were working on and
actually their food in general is surprisingly good for a gas station.
Very good, yeah.
But I'm sure it's not healthy for me. But I mean, I can cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not walking out with the bag of gummy worms and Rockstar that I used to.
Yeah.
And I've lost 25 pounds because of it.
That's good.
This is actually a shirt from high school.
I noticed that while you were talking a little bit ago. I'm like, you are wearing an Envirothon shirt.
I purposely wore this shirt.
Yeah.
Because of our high school connection, but also because I feel good that I can actually fit back into this shirt again, which I couldn't do like 6 months ago.
Yeah. All right, last one. This is a little off the beaten path from the normal questions. You and I, classic rock was such a staple of, partly I think it was the only radio station that came in at the golf course that we worked at.
Yeah, Q98 I think was the main one that we listened to.
Yeah, so... if we're thinking classic rock and you can only pick one album to listen to, start to finish, what are you picking?
Oh, man, one album. It might not be the one, but it's the first one that comes into my mind, and I'm going to talk about it because it's really I want to nerd out on this thing. ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, came out with an album called...
I would have never guessed
Out of the Blue.
That.
Out of the Blue. And the reason why I think that album is so cool, it was probably their best-selling album.
Okay.
But on the original vinyl, and I'm a big vinyl head.
Yep.
I'm really into analog and vinyl. And on the original vinyl, it was 2 discs, 4 sides. And every side felt intentional.
Sure.
And if you listen to it like on Spotify or on CD and you listen to the whole album, I don't think you get the full effect of it.
Okay.
right? Because you're meant to hear side one or side A.
Yeah.
Then you have to take a moment to flip it over. You have to be intentional. You have to be like, it's a process. Then you got to hear side B. And then C is actually my favorite side. So C is like a whole like symphony, right? And Electric Light Orchestra, that was kind of their thing. It was like it's one guy who basically is everyone else's hired guns. Jeff Lynne was the main. Well, he was ELO.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just hired guns.
Yeah.
And he would produce it. I mean, he played on it, of course, but it's the symphonic part of it was a big element of it. And side C, it starts out, it's like raining. It's a whole it's like a storm, right? And
for those of you that have still stayed with us, this is like lunch of our high school at where we worked at the golf course, just arguing about this.
You are getting an insight to how we literally lived our lives.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like the beginning of that side is like dark and like stormy, and I think it ties back to the mental health. Like it can be really hard, and it's like you don't think it's going to come out. And then the last song is Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard that song, and it's such a happy song.
Yeah.
And that ends that side. Yeah. And it's like, so you start out in despair, and then the sun comes out.
Yeah.
And then you go to the last side and you're just feeling good all the way to the end of it. And that album is just, it's so good, but it's meant to be listened in those 4 chunks. Yeah. And probably not my favorite album, but I think the way it's supposed to be listened to is part of the magic.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful, man. I do love that music can pull emotion out of us, and like, even just sitting here, like there are those albums for me too. I would have never guessed in a million years.
What's your favorite album?
If I'm picking just classic rock, I'm going to pick Who Made Who by AC/DC all day, because the greatest rock and roll song ever for those about to rock, which I still remember the first time you were like, you have to listen to this song. Like, that's the greatest rock and roll song ever to me. I know there's a lot of other good songs, but like the music style is so simple. Like what they did, like you go back and listen, and you're like, they're not doing anything, and they're doing everything.
Simple, but it taps into something primal.
Yeah,
almost.
No, it's fantastic. So, Paul, this has been awesome, man.
Yeah,
thank you for making the time, and I so value your story, and I hope other people find value in it too, because it really is a cool story just about reinvention and finding who we are, and then kind of chasing the dream we never knew we had but was always in our hearts to go do. So I appreciate you, and I love you, and it's just been awesome to have you here, man. Yeah.
Do you actually remember the day we met?
I don't remember the day we met.
I don't either.
I don't.
I think that's what's actually really cool about when you have a friend that you've known so long, that you can't remember the day you met. It kind of just exists. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad that we've stayed in touch all these years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think with all the things that happened in my life and in your life, we could have easily fallen out at any point.
Yeah.
And yet somehow, and when I say we stayed in touch, we weren't talking every week.
No.
There was like you said, you went 2 years. I mean, there was times where we only talked like once a year or something. But we've consistently, you're one of the only people that I've consistently stayed in touch with.
Yeah.
Virtually my whole life.
Yeah. Well, and there's a story I told on our first Ask JP Anything episode. We hadn't seen each other in like 10 years. And
in person,
in person. We were talking, we were messaging, we were talking on the phone. But shortly after I was diagnosed bipolar, you came up to visit, and you made sure we got together. And it just meant, I didn't know I was going to get emotional today either, but it just meant so much to me that you came and you were like, here's what you need to worry about, and here's what you don't need to worry about right now. And like that advice, obviously along with the other things that was going on, but that advice really like steered me clear of where I was. And so, you didn't come on this show for no reason. You were here because like you've been a big part of my story too. So
I'm honored you brought me on. I think what you're doing is really good. I think these are good stories that people need to hear, and maybe somebody will find some kind of value from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for watching. The Stable Cyclist Podcast is a weekly-ish show that can be found on YouTube and on the normal podcast platforms like Apple Podcast and Spotify. And the podcast drops each Friday morning. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, do me a favor and make sure you are subscribed and that you hit that thumbs up button. If you are listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, it would also be a huge favor to us if you could go and give us a 5-star review, please and thank you. Finally, the most important thing I can tell you today is to remember that you are loved.